The Kyushu Kobito house. It's a rumor that has circulated the internet for several decades now. But what exactly is it? Where can we find it? And perhaps more importantly, is it even true? Why has this location been such a persistent internet urban legend over the years? And where did it even come from? That's what we're going to look at this week, so let's head on in. First of all, the Kobito here, of course, refers to the Japanese term for a small person. It could also be translated as a dwarf house, but I'm going to stick with Kobito so that people don't think of it as like a Lord of the Rings dwarf house or something. The kanji used for this word are literally small and person. Just a small person house. Now, what is this legend of the Kyushu Kobito house? We can find traces of it on Ni Channel all the way back in 2004, when someone posted about something called the Kobito house near Kawachi Reservoir in Fukuoka Prefecture that they wished to know more about. A few hours later, someone replied with what they'd heard. Apparently, 15 or so years earlier, so sometime in the late 80s or early 90s, the Kobito house was destroyed. But that was it. They didn't have any other information than that. Well, that's not really a lot to go on. Something called a Kobito house, so presumably built small enough that only tiny people could enter, located near Kawachi Reservoir in North Kyushu. That doesn't even really tell us what it is, or why people wanted to know about it, or why it was being discussed in a thread about ghost spots and urban legends. However, if we go back even further, we can find talk in a thread from 2001 that mentions the now infamous Kobito house. According to this person, 15 years earlier, so again, the mid to late 80s, he used to visit something called the Kyushu Folk Art Village, which was a market that no longer runs but can be found just south of Kawachi Reservoir. According to him, there was a facility behind this market that he believed to be for the mentally ill. He wasn't exactly sure what it was, but he felt the people around that building were rather dangerous. At any rate, he used to visit that market once a week for work, and he could see a house from the bus on the way there. It was on the left, facing the mountains, and it had a nameplate, but it didn't seem like anyone lived there. What made this house strange, however, was its design. It was a 2-story house, but it only had stairs on the outside. There were none inside. And the entrance doorknob could be found at a height of roughly an adult's knee. Almost like it was designed for someone tiny to get in and out of. And even more oddly, there were no windows on the second floor either. He later heard from someone at a nearby shrine that it was known locally as the Kobito house, but nobody knew why. 2 or so years later, the man found another job in Fukuoka, and by chance, met someone from the area who told him about that house. This man, M, told him that the house used to belong to a hunchback painter. His words. One of his friends in high school, so around the 70s, visited the house for a test of courage, and even back then it was empty. So he went inside to see what it was like. Just like the doorknob at knee level, everything inside the house was also at knee level. The tap, the sink, everything. The friend also confirmed that there were no stairs inside the house, only those outside. The second floor was partitioned with lattice, almost like a zashikiro, which was a room during the Edo period that was used to confine criminals or the mentally insane, almost like a private jail cell in a house. But he also saw what looked like dried blood on the walls, so he got scared and ran. M later heard that the painter who lived there wasn't exactly in his right mind and used the building as his studio. There were also rumors that he lured a woman there, locked her up, and then she also lost her mind and ended up killing herself. That, supposedly, was all the dried blood his friend saw. But according to M, that area was always kind of weird, so it wasn't really a surprise. OP then mentioned that he went back there recently, but the house was gone and the area had changed so much he couldn't even find where it had once stood. So, from that, we at least know why the Kobito house became an urban legend. Apparently, a painter with bad kyphosis and mental health issues used the building as his studio, and because of his physical difficulties, everything was built to be at knee level so he could easily reach it. Then, at some point, he kidnapped a woman and, well, it didn't end well. Whatever happened to the man himself was unknown, but at some point in the late 1980s, it appeared the building was torn down. And if we go by the timeline of it being empty in the 70s and people not knowing much about it then, it was probably occupied during the 40s, 50s, or maybe 60s. Then, as the area around it built up, its location was lost to time. There weren't even photos of it, because it was a time before the internet was popular. Naturally, without any evidence whatsoever of something existing, and, of course, being a popular urban legend on Knee Channel of all places, some healthy skepticism is required when approaching this tale. At the end of the day, all we have are second-hand stories that this house even existed, let alone what supposedly happened inside it. Now, there are reports of numerous strange, interesting, and unique-looking buildings in and around Kawachi Reservoir, which was designed by Numata Hisanori. Numata was particularly interested in European civil engineering philosophy, and he incorporated a Western style into much of what he built. Part of the reservoir, for example, looks like a European castle. There are also numerous bridges of varying styles spanning the area, giving it a unique look. The reservoir was completed in 1927, and Numata himself retired just a few years later, but his influence and unique design philosophy long remained in the area. Was another building constructed near the reservoir in the following years that was uniquely tailored to one man's requirements? Something that looked quite odd from the outside, but was designed to help him with his physical disability. Who's to say? It's certainly not out of the realm of possibility though. But at this point, we don't even have evidence that the house itself even existed, let alone that a painter with bad kyphosis lived there, nor that he kidnapped a woman at some point and locked her up in there as well. All we have are second-hand accounts on Knee Channel from several decades ago, and the mysterious Kyushu Kobito house still popping up in threads every now and then as people question what it is, or was, and whether it was actually real or not. Kawachi Reservoir itself is also known as a popular ghost spot these days, with numerous stories surrounding it, and you can even find YouTube videos of people looking for the infamous Kobito house today. In vain, of course, because if it did actually exist, well, it apparently doesn't anymore. Was the Kobito house real? Maybe. Maybe not. We sadly don't have any physical evidence of its potential existence anymore. Did a painter live there who kidnapped a woman that then led to her death? Again, all we have are second-hand stories and no actual evidence, so who knows? And so, the mystery persists, but whether the house was ever actually real or not, the stories remain to this day. But what did you guys think of this one? Do you have any similar stories where you live? Let me know in the comments below and I'll see you again next time.